All right, beloved. So I recently came across an old article in the National Council of Aging, and they talked about how men over the age of 50 are basically dealing the sexless life. No bumping and grinding, and no GTD, none of that. And it's coming from a couple things, right? Whether it's from their ability to achieve and maintain a consistent erection, right? Or how long-term relationships and marriages dwindle down the amount of sex that men are actually having after 50. So I figured this was a good topic that I had to get into right now, beloveds. After 50, fellas, your sex life isn't over. It's just more honest about things like circulation, nerves, and partnership, right? So today we're decoding erectile function, premature ejaculation, and the relationship dynamics that keep your relationship alive and not sexless. So understand this before we get on any further, beloveds. I've been helping men with erectile function issues for almost over 10 years now, and I completely disagree with this statement. So let's just get into what's real and true versus what's a myth within this review, right? So I'm going to share this one very underutilized hack that a man can use to fix one of these very important sexual truths for sex after 50. So let's get into it, beloveds. So one of the things they talked about was how men just automatically have like a hard time getting an erection, right? So let's just frame this as myth or fact that men in their 50s automatically have a hard time getting an erection. This is not true, beloveds, especially not true. They've been following me on TikTok and Instagram and subscribing to our newsletter, but that's a side note. This is actually a myth. There's a small amount of truth in every myth, so I will say that because as time goes on, there is a decrease in the hormone testosterone, which actually seems to impact the sensitivity of the penile skin. So as a result, there's a decrease in like the sensitivity of the erection. And what this means is that as aging men need more time and more direct stimulation, sometimes more friction on the penis to achieve a full rock hard erection. Next one, myth or fact. After 50, ED, erectile dysfunction, is just aging. That's a myth, beloved, a bold-faced lie. It's mostly circulation, right? Circulation and signaling, right? So, blood pressure, glucose, your meds, sleep, and your blood vessel health, right? Age is context, but it's not the sole cause, beloved. Next, myth or fact. Men over 50 more likely to suffer from PE, premature ejaculation. Is this true or is this false? This is a myth, beloved, and not only is it a myth, but it's also a stereotype. So the man who takes care of their prostate, right, has a strong pelvic floor, may not finish too quickly. Actually, the opposite is more likely to happen, right? In the younger years, it's premature ejaculation that comes as an issue, right? So after 50, it's actually delayed orgasm, right? That can actually be stressful for you and your lady, for both parties, right? Now, in some instances, everyone, does their job, they're doing the work, everything is going as expected. And then what's missing is that expected explosion, right? Like that climax at the end that everybody just feels, right? So at the end, what happens is that what used to be so easy in your 20s, in your 30s, in your 40s, but what happens over time, like we said, there's a decrease in the sensitivity, the penile tissue, right? So now this is most likely a direct result of reduced T levels, right? Reduced testosterone and a result of decreased blood flow. Over time, the prostate gland is weaker, right? The ducts of the gland may actually be blocked, and as a result, some men experience delayed orgasm, right? So this could also be happening because you might be taking some type of meds or high blood pressure medication, thyroid medication, whatever, right? And it could also be some type of psychological thing, right, going on there. But what happens is that you get this blank look from your lady in the bed or your partner in the bed. And they just like, you putting in work. Well, hurry up and finish, please. You know what I'm saying? So, and another thing, it could also be hormonal, right? Hormones, they fluctuate so much, and it also could be from too much masturbation. Either way, it's just stressful for all parties involved, right? Okay, cool. So cards on the table, right? You just heard what's real, what's not, the myths, right? Now here's some things that actually move the needle, beloved. An erection at its most basic level is plumbing plus nerves, right? Arteries must open fast so blood rushes into the penis, right? That pressure has to pinch the tiny exit veins, right? That's venous occlusion. So blood actually stays trapped where it's supposed to be. So whether those vessels open easily depends on your endothelium, right? Which is like the vessel lining of your blood vessels. And a messenger called nitric oxide. Y'all heard me talk about this plenty of times, right? But medical conditions, right? Medical ailments like diabetes and high blood pressure, sleep apnea, even smoking, right? And low activity, right? Like being lethargic, right? Living a sedentary lifestyle can actually destroy nitric oxide and stiffen vessels. Some medications can do the same thing. That's physiology, right? But all of this is fixable. Like these are not issues that you just can't fix. Now, here's what helps, right? And I always tell guys this: train for blood flow, train for circulation. 30 minutes a day, 150 minutes a week of steady cardio. Add that plus 3 to 4 days, or even let's reverse that, 2 to 3 days of resistance training, right? This improves your endothelial function, right? Your lining releases more nitric oxide, arteries open on cue, and that trap holds. So the bottom line is you trim the wrist, you sharpen the signal. You bring your waistline down, your blood pressure numbers, you bring those down to a healthy level. And your glucose, you put that in the optimal range. Better numbers lead to better vessel flexibility, which leads to easier inflow and a tighter seal. You do that, beloveds, and the hardness and the firmness stops feeling corn toss, right? So when firmness isn't all the way there, like men speed up to beat the clock, right? So to speak, right? That rush shortens your erection. You fix the erection, and PE, it kind of like dies down a little bit, right? But I want to be a little bit more precise. There are two types of PE, right? Two types of premature ejaculation. So the first one is lifelong PE, right? So lifelong premature ejaculation, right? It started early, but it's consistent, but it kind of happens and you're able to kind of move, like as you continue to get older, it kind of fades away, right? And then acquired premature ejaculation. So this shows up later in life, right? So after 50, it frequently, combines with like erectile dysfunction or any other new, health issues that you might be having, or taking any additional new medications, right? So while later life PE happens is that you have a lower baseline of nitric oxide and a little vascular drag, right? So that's kind of, withholding you from doing what you need to do, right? That performance sprint, it spikes adrenaline, and adrenaline drops the threshold to ejaculate. It's a loop, beloveds. Softer, faster, coming soon, right? So one of my favorite supplements to fix premature ejaculation is beetroot. I love it. I stand by it. I guarantee it, beloveds. Beetroot is rich in dietary nitrates, right? So your mouth bacteria converts nitrate into nitrite, and your body converts nitrite into nitric oxide. More nitric oxide equals better arterial inflow, beloveds, and smoother endothelial cell function. So in the bedroom, that translates to steadier erection pressure and less beat the clock panic, beloveds. So when pressure holds, you can slow down, right? You can run the start stop properly, right? Like these are all important things. So a quick reality check, right? Just for a minute. Premature ejaculation after 50 is usually a combination of things like mechanics plus adrenaline, right? It's not a mystery. So you stabilize firmness, you practice threshold control, and if needed, right? Layer evidence-based meds, right? That combination reliably, it lengthens time without killing the sensation, without killing the moment, right? Of you being in the moment of being intimate. After 50, delayed ejaculation is usually a stack, right? So sensation plus flow plus mechanics, right? Adding up to a quiet reflex, right? So number one is reduced glands, right? Or reduced glands and frenulum sensitivity, right? So the signal is softer. So the glands, which is like the head of the penis, and the frenulum, which is like the small band on the underside, it carries dense touch receptors. It's real sensitive, beloveds. So with age, those receptors need more stretch and more warmth to fire up and get ready. Get ready to rumble. The glands they don't fully plump, right? Fewer receptors press into contact. So translation, you're doing the work, but the message arriving to the reflex is too quiet. It's too subtle. And then we gotta look at nitric oxide. Lower nitric oxide and stiffer small vessels slow engorgement of the glands. So less swelling means less stretch on places where it's needed. Less stretch equals less feedback equals the reflex doesn't tip. You feel present but stuck at 80%. And then we gotta talk about medications too. And at age in your late 40s, moving on, especially getting into your 50s, like SSRIs, right? Like they can cause like some serious issues with ejaculation, right? So SSRIs, which stand for selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, right? They raise serotonin in circuits that inhibit the ejaculation process, right? As a result, arousal is intact, firmness can be fine, right? Like it's no problem getting it up, but your climax, your finish, your ending is far away or sometimes just completely blocked. So if delayed ejaculation started after a medication change, that's a big clue, beloveds. Bring it to your doctor. Do not stop the meds on your own, please, right? So that's the map. Sensation and filling, right? It needs fuller swelling. Vessels need a better nitric oxide signal, right? The pelvic floor needs to release, and meds need to be accounted for, beloveds. So if you remember at the top of this episode, I talked about a protocol, right? So stay with me, beloveds. This works, right? I've been helping men for quite some time with this. So here's what you can do at the comfort of your home, beloveds. When climax stalls, when it ain't there, when you're not finishing how you used to, the signal from the most sensitive spot isn't loud enough to reach that finish. We want to turn that signal up, beloveds, safely and at home. So hospitals use something called penile vibration, right, to trigger ejaculation in certain patients because strong, steady vibration can wake up that reflex. This is called the frenulum focus vibro protocol. So we're adapting that idea for everyday delayed ejaculation by aiming vibration at the frenulum, right, the small band on the underside of the head. It's the richest nerve area, right? So louder input there equals a clearer message to finish the job. So how do we do it? Simple step by step, beloved. So first, warm lube in your hands, slow, broad touch. Keep the nose breathing, long exhales, keep the adrenaline down, right? It stops that performance anxiety from actually happening. And then the tool, right? So use a small fingertip vibrator. Put a soft silicone cover or layer lube on the tip so it's cushioned and doesn't feel buzzy, so it doesn't irritate you, right? And then placement, gently. I'm saying this because the entire goal of this is to feel like the sensation, right? So gently place the tip at the frenulum. So don't press hard, but slightly do it, right? Because the whole goal is to feel that sensitivity behind us, right? And then pulse cycle. So you go 30, 35, 45 seconds on, 15 seconds off. You do 3 to 5 cycles, right? Doing off, you switch to, your usual touch or your partner's rhythm, right? How they like it, right? You're stacking that vibe on top of real arousal. You're not replacing, right? Fellas, please understand this. Your 50s can be your most satisfying decade when you align everything. Circulation, nerves, and partnership. Some might say it's a lot of work to do, but this is just what the work is, right? Work is work, right? So if you want to continue to have a successful sex life, these are the things that you got to do, beloveds. There's just no argument behind it. We got to treat ED almost like a blood flow project, right? So you use guideline-backed tools for premature ejaculation so time moves on your command, right? If your climax is slow, then what we just talked about, you run the frenulum focus vibro protocol, right? To reignite that reflex, right? And then if, you want to get more into it, you add fuel to the fire. You add fuel to the pipeline, right? With our beetroot capsules to support nitric oxide, right? To support that nitric oxide pathway and increase circulation, right? You stack them with nose breathing and smart timing, and then you watch how everything unfolds. You can get our beetroot capsules at everybodyjuice.com. Fellas, remember, this is sovereignty over your biology. This is not hope. So with that being said, beloveds, if this hit, subscribe, tap the bell. That's my time till the next time. I love y'all. God bless. I'm out.